Hi there, this is Sheena Rowlands and today I'm sharing with you my latest layout for Simple Stories Saturdays. So I'm just showing you what I've got left from the Wildflower range, and I'm going to use the Breathe Deep paper as my background. And this little card was in the 6x8 pad. It says you and me. And this isn't the first layout I've made with the wildflower paper. But I hadn't expected to scrap this wedding photo with it, but actually the yellow tones in the photo seem to go really well with the papers. I really like the pink and yellow combo actually in this range, and I can see me using it until I use it all up. So I'm being a bit radical. I don't know whether you saw that there. I am cutting a, well, not quite all the way through. I'm cutting top and bottom at about 6 inches. And the idea is I want to make the centre of the paper the focal point where I'm going to put the photograph. So what I'm doing is I'm actually roughing up the edges of the cuts that I've made to make like a V shape. So I'm going to do that top and bottom. The cuts at the top are slightly longer than the bottom, or they are at the finish anyway. And I was just trying to figure out to make sure I keep the size of the photo in the centre. So I didn't want to cut in too far. So I'm now looking at photos to fill those gaps. So I'm just bringing in the photo again, just reminding myself, of the size of the gap that I need. And I'm using another pattern paper from the 6x8 pad, and I'm going to add a couple more papers, well, the same paper but either side, so it looks like there's another torn paper as well in that gap. So not only am I roughing it up and curving it, you need to make sure the bend is narrow at one end and wider at the other. So I decided I'd choose the paper that wanted to be at as the base to fill the gap. And I'm going to stick that down first, but I'm not going to stick it too near the tears so that I can actually put the other torn pieces in that gap. I think it'll make more sense as I go along. So I'm just roughing up the edges with a distress tool there, and I'm curving them back out. I'm distressing the edges of the extra bits that I'm going to add in, and as I say, I'm making them wider at one end and narrower at the other so that they will fit in. And I'm just making sure that this is exactly how I want this to work. And so far I'm liking the idea. I mean, you've got 3 pattern papers plus the backs of the original cuts. So you've got quite a lot of different patterns going on, but I think they're reasonably subtle. So I'm just sticking the base there. It's a check, and I'm lining up the centre of the check, or I'm trying to, with the cut in the main paper. So once I'm happy with that, then that gives me a base to be able to stick these other folded bits onto, if that makes sense. So I'm just using some double-sided tape, and this can be repositioned a little. It's not repositionable as such, but initially, if I do make a mistake, I can lift it back up again pretty quickly. So obviously this is the other pointing in the other direction, so it's still narrow at the other end and wider. And I'm just going to make sure that I've got that into position. So it just looks a bit like book pages or torn elements there at the bottom. And I like the way the different colours are peeking through. Now, I will warn you now, if you have an issue with the depth of layouts in your albums, this technique is probably not for you, because in the finished layout, even though it does get a little squashed when it goes in a page protector, it is possibly still coming up for just under ½ an inch thick. Yes, if you like flat layouts, you definitely won't want this in your album, I'm afraid. But hey, I'm not too worried. So as you can see, I flip the paper around and I'm doing exactly the same technique with the other end, just trying to get it into position so that it curls out nicely. So they're too long, obviously, so I'm now coming in with a pair of scissors and just giving them a bit of a trim. I then actually take a little bit off to make it look so they're not quite flat with the final edge, and I like the way they turn out when they are pressed down. So I'm going back to the centre a little bit. I've got my photograph, I've got a doily underneath it. I think you can't beat a doily with some wedding in your mind, so I'm going to use that for sure. I've gone through all the ephemera that I've got left in this range, and I've put all the pinks and yellows in this tray. So I really like some of the flowery pieces. I think they'll definitely get used, but I'm also looking at maybe some layering elements as well. So obviously this You and Me came from a 3x4 journaling card from the 6x8 pad, and I've trimmed it down a little bit more. I don't want it to be as big as the photo, I just want it to be the title. So I have got a layer under the photo at the minute. I will add more as time goes on. I'm looking essentially to have all my elements in a more of a diagonal from the top left photo to the bottom right of the journaling card. So I've got some tags left off the tag element sheet. So I've just brought in my We Are Memory Cutters, We Are Memory Keepers, that's funny, tag punch there. That is a hole punch essentially, and I brought that in, and I've there. It's perfect for doing the holes in Simple Stories tags. So I've used that to punch the holes, and I'm definitely going to have a tag on each side. I've cut the doily in half now because my big embellishment really essentially in the centre is growing, so if I want any of the doily to show, it needs to be stretched a little. So I've snipped it down the middle. It's fine. In the end you barely see it at the bottom of the layout anyhow, but that was how I was thinking. So I've got a couple of tags in there, one on either side. In fact, that one stays at the bottom. So I'm just looking if I can add any more. I'm going to possibly bring in that pink gingham one as well, because the V's that I've cut in the paper, they should be drawing your eye into the centre. So I want everything to be clustered quite close together. Also, it gives the rest of the paper a chance just to be nice and calm. And obviously, it's a picture of a bride and groom, so I want you to be looking at them. So I've had to put 3 layers of foam pads on the back of these to make them stand up at the same level as the torn paper either end, because otherwise it was like sinking in the centre. So I did pile the foam pads on and try it in advance with the protective layer on, just to see if it was going to work, and it did. It was fine. So as I say, going to be a chunky one. So I'm liking the cluster that's coming together at the top left. There's a circle and a flower, and I've tucked in the word November, which is the month they got married, and that's on a little tab. And I'm now looking at the bottom left. I've got another flower cluster that I'd like to use there, and another circle. So I think that those two elements echo the other corner. I think that works quite nicely. And I'm just making sure I've got some foam beneath them just to support them now that it's raised up. So let me just talk about Simple Stories Saturdays for a moment. So Simple Stories Saturdays is a YouTube blog hop that happens once a month on the last Saturday of the month. There's a group of us that all use Simple Stories products. We don't all use the same ones. We're all different, very different designers. But the idea is it's to give everybody inspiration of what can be made with Simple Stories and collections, and to use it up, because a lot of us, we collect things and we don't use them. So do have a look in the comments below and hop round the rest of the group. They're much appreciated. And once you've watched this one, hopefully if you like what you see, you'll give us a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel, and you'll be able to see the ones in the coming months. So I've brought in the sticker sheet, I've brought in the stick-on brads, just literally adding some finishing touches now to this central cluster. I don't like the idea that I might miss something, so I'll always go back and have a look at everything that I've got left in a range. And potentially it doesn't have to be totally Simple Stories, but it all goes really well together. So I like the way that's gone. There's a butterfly, there's a few extra flowers, and now I want to add a little bit of sparkle because it's a wedding. So I picked out of this multicoloured box. Whose ever idea it was to mix them all together, I don't know. But anyway, I enjoyed picking out some yellows and some whites and some pinks and some see-through ones, and I'm just dotting them around, still going with a vertical line, even though obviously being drawn into the centre, I didn't want to space out too far to the sides at all. So just to add a little bit more, there's going to be a few sequins dotted around. So I'm going to place them first before I bring in any glue to stick these down. I think they're just the little bit of added zhuzh that I need to finish this off. But I really like how it looks. I'm looking forward to sending an image to the bride to see what she thinks, as I've scrapped quite a few of her photographs over the last few months. So I'm just enjoying picking these out at the moment. And I'll just stick them down with a bit of just wet glue. I tend to use the Nuvo Deluxe adhesive just to make sure they stay secure and don't end up in the bottom of the page protector, which can sometimes happen if we're with certain adhesives. So here we are, they're all stuck down, nice little bit of shine. Here's the full image and some close-ups too. Thank you so much for watching. It's much appreciated, and I'll see you here again real soon. Bye for now.